Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Sandy Smith, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Kristen Watts. We warmly welcome the family of leading stoker Rupert Allenby Taylor, whose story will be told shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge General Stephen Whiting, Commander, US Space Command, accompanied by Lieutenant General Susan Coyle, Chief of Joint Capabilities. We also warmly welcome Mr. Alex McGowan, representing the Naval Association of Australia. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors to the memorial, and representatives of the Woden Valley Girl Guides. If you are able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
For those who are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and in operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament. Flowers of the forest, wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to leading stoker Rupert Allenby Taylor. Rupert Allenby Taylor was born in West Melbourne to Doris and William Taylor on the 30th of March, 1919. In July 1936, when Taylor was 17 years old, he joined the Royal Australian Navy. He completed his initial training at HMAS Cerberus, the Navy's base at Western Port in Victoria. On his 18th birthday, he signed on for a period of 12 years. Taylor qualified as a stoker while serving in the sloop HMAS Swan. As a stoker, his roles included working in the engine room of the ship and tending to the engines. Swan was a new ship, having been built at Cockatoo Island in Sydney, and Taylor was a member of the commissioning ship's company. His time in Swan's engine room meant that he became accustomed to the most up-to-date systems in the Navy. In July 1938, Taylor was posted to the seaplane tender Albatross. This former Royal Australian Navy ship had been in reserve in Sydney Harbour, but was transferred to the Royal Australian Navy in 1938 as part payment for a new light cruiser for Australia. Taylor and about 300 other Australian sailors sailed Albatross to Britain and then formed the commissioning ships company for the new cruiser, HMAS Hobart. These men completed the return journey to Australia, arriving just before Christmas 1938. The ship visited its namesake city early in the year and spent time visiting ports in the South Pacific during winter. In September 1939, when Britain declared war on Germany, Hobart initially took up duties patrolling the lines of trade along Australia's east coast. In October of that year, Hobart sailed from Sydney to join the Royal Navy's East Indies Station in the Indian Ocean. There the ship carried out convoy escort duties. In June 1940, Italy entered the war on the side of Nazi Germany. Hobart was stationed at the British colonial port of Aden in modern-day Yemen, and the ship fired its first shots of the war at Italian aircraft attacking the city. Italian forces began threatening British Somaliland, south across the Gulf of Aden. Hobart was involved in the landing of reinforcements at the port of Berbera and also the evacuation of British forces from August 1940 onwards. During this time, Taylor was made acting leading stoker. This promotion was made permanent a year later. HMAS Hobart returned to Australia at the end of 1940, and in March 1941, Taylor transferred to Hobart's sister ship, the light cruiser HMAS Sydney. This ship had recently risen to fame after its victory over the Italian cruiser Bartolomeo Colleoni in the Mediterranean in 1940. Soon after Taylor joined the ship's company, HMAS Sydney transported the Chief of Naval Staff to Singapore to participate in a high-level strategic conference. From there, Sydney returned to Australian waters and took up routine convoy escort duties, protecting British, Australian and American ships. On the 11th of November 1941, Sydney steamed from Fremantle, Western Australia, escorting the troop ship Zealandia north to the Netherlands East Indies. On the 17th, Sydney handed the troop ship escort duty over to HMS Durban in the Sunda Strait and commenced the return passage to Fremantle. On the afternoon of the 19th of November 1941, Sydney sighted what appeared to be a merchant ship some 200 kilometres west of Shark Bay, Western Australia, and closed to investigate. Sydney signalled the ship to identify itself while continuing to close with the mysterious vessel. The ship replied that it was the Dutch steamer Straat Malacca, but in fact, it was the heavily armed German merchant raider Cormoran in disguise. Cormoran had already sunk 10 unsuspecting merchant ships in the Indian Ocean and taken another as a prize. Sydney drew closer, relinquishing its advantage of superior armament and range, and demanded that the ship identify itself with its allotted secret call sign. The captain of the German raider did not have the response and instead raised the German battle ensign and opened fire. The two ships were only about 1.5 kilometres apart, point-blank range for naval gunnery. In the battle that followed, both ships were badly damaged. After the battle, the crew of Cormoran scuttled the raider and abandoned the ship. More than 300 of its crew survived to become prisoners of war in Australia. HMAS Sydney, torpedoed and ablaze, sank during the early hours of the 20th of November 1941 with the loss of all 645 members on board, including leading stoker Rupert Taylor. He was 22 years old. With no grave but the sea, Taylor and his comrades are commemorated on the Plymouth Naval Memorial in England, alongside more than 20,000 British and Commonwealth sailors of the First and Second World Wars. Rupert Taylor's older brother Frank joined the Australian Imperial Force during the war. Sergeant Francis George Taylor served in New Guinea, survived the war and returned to Australia in December 1945. In Australia, Taylor was survived by his mother and stepfather and his sisters Kathleen and Joy. Leading stoker Rupert Allenby Taylor is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among nearly 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember leading stoker Rupert Allenby Taylor, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They have no grave but the cruel sea, no flowers lay at their head. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, a fast on the ocean bed. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.